Hey everybody, this is just gonna be a quick video. Um, I want to talk a little bit about this PM I got, and honestly, it's nothing too serious, and I'm not calling this person out or anything like that. But I just want to read through it a little bit and talk about it. So if you find this video interesting, hopefully you leave a like on it. If not, that's alright too. But like I said, it's not gonna be anything too serious. But so this PM says, "Hello JDM Watt. Just found you on Reddit and love what you're doing. I found this post and it's great. And the post he's talking about is my first post on the Plex subreddit, which is the Plex server build recommendation. Let me change this to regular mode. Plex server build recommendation, $500, 8 core, 16 thread with quad channel RAM. And I mean, back then it was a little over a year ago. It's a great build. I mean, it's still a great build. I use something almost identical for my FreeNAS box, but a little bit's changed since then. So let's try to go back to the PM. Where is it? Here it is. So he found this post, and he says, "I'm currently running Plex on my desktop. I'm looking to build a dedicated server for it to be able to increase performance and reliability." Um, Both are really good points. On a desktop, you're probably going to be wanting to shut it off all the time. So if your server shut off, then you can't get to your Plex server. Um, Having a dedicated server is awesome because you get it up and running and it just runs. And then if you need to access it, you can access it remotely. And also performance wise, definitely going to put it, like if you're transcoding on the same system, um, your gaming performance is going to go down. If you have a lot of Chrome tab opens, you're going to run out of RAM, things like that. And it's really not ideal to be doing those things on a full like dedicated server. So a couple good things there. So he's heading in the right direction. And he said, "Since that link was a Plex build from over a year ago, could you point me to the latest Plex build?" In the description of this video, and also in my subreddit, and also in Discord, you can find a search link that will search all of the builds. And what you can do on Plex, if you find a build advice thread, you can just click this. Click the flare here where it says build advice, and it'll list all the builds. And default order is sequentially, so the most recent one will be here. It just goes back. And so here's the one he found a little over a year ago. Where is it? There it is. The build was a lot lower than the budget that I have. My birthday's coming up and I have a reasonable budget for it at about $1,600. If I don't need to spend it, I don't. That'd be great. I could use the rest for upgrading my desktop, etc., etc. He's currently using one 8 gig red drive that's currently holding his media in a USB 3 external enclosure. So if you got one drive, that's only one point of failure. If that drive fails, you're done. There's no backing up. There's no recovery. I mean, if you have a cloud backup or something, like 8 terabytes, a lot to back up. So it's really not feasible to have that for most people. And if you only have one drive and say all of your important files and your media are on that drive, if that drive fails, you can't get that data back. So he's looking to run at least two more in RAID 5 or similar, which is a good, that's a good idea. And then he has some sort of data parity where he can get his files back. If a drive dies, you just insert a new drive and then rebuild the array from there. In his case, if he only has one drive, I think that going unraid would be a good solution because you have all your data on one drive. You can add two more to unraid, so you'd have one for your parity, one for your data. Transfer all of the data from your current 8 terabyte over to a new 8 terabyte, and then add your current 8 terabyte to the unraid array. So you'd have about 16 terabytes usable, probably around 15 once all the formatting's done. Then you'd also have a parity drive. Uh, but you wouldn't be locked into running RAID 5, where you'd have to create an array, and they wouldn't be able to add more drives later. Unraid is really nice and flexible, so you can use any size drives you want. And if he's a little budget constrained in the future, he can get 4 terabyte drives and use those instead of 8s, or in addition to the 8s he already has. Also need a UPS for it. Probably don't need a UPS. I don't know that that's worth spending money on just for a server. I mean, it's unless you have particularly bad power where you live. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if you want one, sure, that's fine, but I don't think it's necessary. I'm just gonna skip. Oh, I'd like for it to be fairly quiet. Looking at putting it in a basement where it's cooler and run it headless. Okay, so you're gonna make sure you have to have Ethernet in the basement. Quiet's not a big deal if you get a like the Roswell chassis that we've been using in the past couple builds. All you have to do is replace the fans with the Arctic PWM 120 millimeter fans, and you can really quiet it down with that. They move plenty of air, and the only thing that really determines the noise factor of your server is, well, are the fans. So there's a lot of people think that just because you're in a rack mount situation or you're running a server build or you're running Xeons, it's going to be louder. I got at least 3 questions on the last build saying, how loud is this? Well, it depends on what kind of fans and heat sinks you put in it. So the Arctic series fans are perfect. They're great. I use them all the time. They're very, very quiet. They're not as quiet as Noctua fans, but you can buy about 5 Arctic fans for the price of 1 Noctua fan. So putting it in a basement's okay. I would say that you're not like putting it in a small closet, so you don't have to worry about heat building up, and it's cooler anyway. And like I said, if you have Ethernet down there, you can run it headless, which means that you just have power and Ethernet plugged in, and you can access it remotely. Unraid has a great remote access solution. It's just through the web browser, so you can just access it through there on your local network. Unfortunately, I haven't done that before, so I'll have to learn about it, he says, and it's not a problem. Pretty easy to learn. Unraid's very, very user-friendly. And he continues to talk about it. Hopefully, I can then remote into it via my desktop when needed and do things like add and transfer new media from my desktop. So what you would do, besides managing it, which you would do through a web console, you would be adding and transferring new media through network drive shares. And you can create those in Unraid. And then I haven't used Unraid in a little while since my last Unraid video. But I know that in FreeNAS you can create different shares based on, you can create NFS shares or SMB shares or AFS shares for Linux, Windows, and Apple respectively. So you just create a share and then you would map the share on your local desktop or laptop or whatever, and then drag and drop the media. And that's assuming that you would have the permissions set up correctly so you can read and write, but that's honestly not too hard, and you can change that at any time. You don't have to mess around too much there. Being that I am going to put it in the basement, I need to find something to keep it off the floor to save it from moisture just in case. Well, you can just use IKEA lac rack and set it on top of that, or just a small table. And then he goes on to say, I found the last/best match for what I'm looking for, which is your post, the $750 20 core 40 thread Threadripper Killer, also known as Threadrunner. It's 8 months old, so I don't know if it's really gonna be up to date and things like that. Well, I will bring up the post here. Here it is. And this is one of our most popular builds. Super powerful, super capable. We outlined a bunch of different processor options. and this is where we started getting into different configurations, showing the possible pass mark scores. But from what I can tell, from what this guy is telling me, this is, I mean, it's a great system and all, but I don't think it's ultimately what he's going to go for, especially once I suggest the most recent NAS Killer build, um, which is also dual processor, and we have a nice CPU chart outlining different pass marks for single and dual pass mark. So at the top end, we're looking at about 12,300 pass mark. Not as much as the even the base config of this, but here's the price, $413 at the time, and now it's even more because we sold out of this the Threadripper Killer motherboard. I mean, even here we're looking at $63, and that's about $50 more than this, so about $190 for the same amount of pass mark. And so $190 system, which is less than half of the other one. And honestly, you get a lot more for your money, I think. Although you're sacrificing some upgradability, I don't think that most people need more than 12,000 pass mark. And I think it'll be a long time before you actually need to upgrade that, especially with 6 cores, 12 threads each. Oops. Yeah, each one of these X5670s has 6 cores and 12 threads. Turbo to 3.33, they're great overall processors. And at 3150, I think you can get them even down into like the 28, 25 range. So that'll bring this down to about $50. I mean, they're just fantastic. You can spend more money on RAM. You can spend more money on drives. The things that really matter, I don't think RAM matters actually that much. So if you have 8 gig or 16 gig, you'll be fine. But you can spend a lot more money on hard drives. And if you're going to go unraid, you're going to need to spend a little bit of money on an SSD cache. So I think the money would be better allocated there. And if he already has other interests, such as gaming, he did talk about that a little bit. I mean, $200 more in your pocket can get you a way better video card, just for example. So you can go from a 1060 to like a 1066 gig to a 1070 Ti with $200. So that's a big deal. I would personally, like if I were giving advice to this guy, I would say save your money, go for the mid-tier. I wouldn't even do X5670. I would do E5645. These are pretty cheap, $23 a pair, 10,400 pass mark. Go for those guys. Spend your money on drives, put it in your pocket. If you're getting money for your birthday, I don't mean this in a negative way, but I'm assuming you're a little bit younger, so maybe save the money for your future, save it for college. And I don't mean this to turn into a life advice video, but if I were to do my server build again, I would definitely spend less on the hardware and more on the things that will ultimately matter, which are in no particular order: life, things that I need, storage for the server, which you can never have enough storage, so storage is important, and saving a little bit extra for unknown, I guess unknown variables, where if you decide to go in a different direction, you have a little bit of play money to say, okay, well maybe I need more RAM because I'm doing a lot more virtualization than I thought, or maybe I'd like to really upgrade my case fans, or I'd like to buy a rack and put it in a rack. So if he's talking about getting off the floor, for example, you want to go rack mount, and that's a great way to do it. But racks cost money, so you could put some of the money towards that. There's a lot of different things you could do. And just to kind of finish this up here, that's what I would recommend. And honestly, this build isn't outdated. Hopefully I'm going to come out with a new 2011 build soon. This one here. It's been a little overdue for a 2011 build. It's been about 8 months. So I got something in the works. I'm talking to a couple different sellers on eBay, trying to get the prices of server motherboards down, especially 2011 boards. We haven't seen a solid sub 250 2011 board in a little while. So I'm trying to work on trying to get a sub $200 2011 board. Um, but yeah, I mean it's not out of date. These things, like, the processors are still good. I mean, you can look up all these parts on eBay and see what the current price is. The only thing that makes it out of date is just the pricing, really. He says, anything you can point me to help guide me would be really appreciated. Well, hopefully you see this video and you enjoy it a little bit. I will respond to you over message anyway, so it's not a big deal if you don't. And yeah, I get this kind of message all the time, and I'm not trying to discourage you from sending me a message on Reddit or sending me a message on YouTube or Discord or whatever. People message me all the time. I just felt the need to kind of talk about it a little bit, and I'm sorry if this video's gotten a little bit rambly, but yeah, this is just kind of my thought process as I'm looking at these messages and how I respond. I don't really have a canned response. I don't. A lot of times I'll just say, "Hey, message me on Discord," because it's a little bit easier to go back and forth. Whereas Reddit, you have these little bit longer form messages back and forth, and it's a little bit more complicated and time consuming. But yeah, so if any of you need help, shoot me a message on Discord or ask in the hardware channel, ask in the tech support channel if you're having problems, and I will see you guys next time. Hope you enjoyed this video, and look forward to a couple build videos coming up.